Hi there, I'm Caitlin Dean, and I'm a local friend and person of the Spiral Living Center here, and I'm the events coordinator. And so today, for our virtual Skillshare, we're going to talk about how to do sauerkraut. And so sauerkraut, specifically, we're mostly using green cabbage. And so you can use all different kinds of cabbage for sauerkraut, and adding all different kinds of spices and things, but today we're just going to keep it really simple. Here we've got cabbage that we freshly took out of the garden, and then we washed most of the dirt off of it. And so you want to make sure that it's clean when you're working with it, and that some of our volunteers helped us take off a few of the outer leaves on the cabbage too. So kind of just getting to the nice clean inner part. And then, of course, you can use the outer leaves for compost or for your animals on your farm. And then we have all different kinds of knives. So a selection of different kind of serrated knives are really good for kind of cutting through the cabbage. We have some wooden cutting boards, and then we also have a mandolin. And so you can also use a shredder, but also the mandolin is really nice so that you can get really even pieces for the sauerkraut. And so the key with fermenting, it's really nice to have even thicknesses of whatever vegetable that you're working with, so it all ferments kind of at the same time, so you don't have pieces that are not fermented and some are a little bit more. We also have salt. So the key with fermenting, at least for sauerkraut or anything called a lacto-ferment, is you're essentially just using salt. And salt, what it does is essentially it's going to pull out moisture from all of the cabbage that we're working with and create kind of like a brine that the cabbage can actually just sit in and submerge in and ferment. And so I'm using sea salt today, but you can also use pickling salt or Himalayan pink salt or any kind of salt that you have your hands on. Even iodized salt would be okay for this, but you know, basically something simple and neutral is going to be perfect. And so what I like to do first is just to cut it up into even wedges. And so once you have 4 wedges, which is what I usually like to do, just cut it into 4 sections, you can then begin using the mandolin. But for this part, I am just going to show you about just using your knife, because not a lot of people have this kind of tool, but most people have a knife in their kitchen. So again, kind of just cutting it in even pieces here. I usually also then like to cut up my wedges in another piece. I'm cutting lengthwise to get kind of long, thinner strips. And so another thing about cutting cabbage for sauerkraut, or even whatever vegetable you're using, whether it be carrots or radish, is trying to get it small enough so that the salt can penetrate the vegetables quicker. My go-to recipe is 1 medium head of cabbage with 1 tablespoon of salt. So in this particular instance, our cabbages are pretty big. So I'm going to say 2 tablespoons per head of cabbage. So we know we have 2 heads of cabbage in this bowl. So I'm going to say we're going to pour 4 tablespoons of salt. And so what I'm going to do is just kind of do 1 tablespoon at a time. This is the second one. Kind of mix it up a little bit just to get it covered. Do the other 2. And so for flavor, at this point you would want to add your seeds or herbs or anything that you want to add in there. So today we're going to be adding the caraway seeds, which is a very traditional flavorant for sauerkraut. You'll find it in rye bread and other types of, European cuisine. And so again, it's usually about a tablespoon per medium cabbage, but I think for now I'm going to just do 2 for this, and then you can always add more later, but you can't take away what you put in. So I like to go light with the spices first, and then add in, once you add all of your spices, as you can see in the bowl, again with the salt, you're going to start massaging. And so again, working at a comfortable waist level, so that's good for your back, that you're not bending down. I'm going to just start gently tossing it so that the salt and the spices are covering all of the cabbage. You're going to basically be squishing it in your hands. And this is probably going to take a good amount of time if you have a lot of cabbage. So you want to just be patient and go slow and use your body weight, be able to put your body weight into the cabbage. Get a good stance going. So I'm simultaneously kind of like squishing it in my hands and using my fingers, and you'll start to feel the moisture already. You can see it's dripping. And so that is the brine, the natural moisture that is going to ferment our sauerkraut. And so it's really just the magic of salt and, working it in with your hands, and then we'll go to the next step after this. So we're now at the step where we've gone ahead and we added our salt, we added our spices, which is our caraway seed, and we spent about 15-20 minutes massaging our cabbage. And as you can see, it's totally transformed. So we have all this beautiful liquid, which is essentially just the water that's coming out of the cabbage through the process of adding the salt and massaging it. So you can really see it actually looks like it went down about twice its size, because when we first started, it was really a lot of cabbage in here. So today we're using these half-gallon mason jars, which we've already cleaned and sterilized, which you can do by just washing with hot soapy water, or if you have a dishwasher, you can put it in that. Even if they're brand new jars, it is still really nice to wash them. And so there is multiple ways to get the cabbage in here, but I love to just use my hands. I have small hands, so it's really nice to be able to just put my hand in there. You can use tongs, which are really helpful. Actually, tongs are nice, or just a spoon. So once I have it loosely packed, I'm going to take my hand, and you can also use the back end of a wooden spoon, or they even make these wooden fermenter mallets, which are extra fancy, but I like to just stick my hand in there in a fist and press. And you can see a lot of the air bubbles coming up and coming out, and the cabbage is being compressed at the very bottom. And all that liquid is coming to the top. And so you're going to keep adding your cabbage until you have it at just about under the lip of the jar, like we would for canning. And so the important thing when you're fermenting anything with the lacto-fermenting or using a saltwater brine, or what we're doing today, is you really want your vegetable matter and your cabbage to be submerged under your liquid. Because what happens is if this gets exposed to air, it's going to just be a breeding ground for bad bacteria, mold. So it's really nice to make sure that it's pressed down. So I'm just adding enough, come to the top, not all the way. Sometimes I've had situations where I've made a sauerkraut and the cabbage actually absorbs some of the moisture, or some of the moisture even actually evaporates off. So you do want to keep an eye on it. And they do make all sorts of different tools that are called fermentation weights. And so you can buy one that's either glass, ceramic, or I sometimes even just like to clean off a nice clean river rock and just put it on there. But you want to make sure that your weight that you're putting in fits in here and that you're able to take it in and out as well. You don't want to get something too large. And so all this liquid is just from the cabbage. We didn't add anything else. Another option to add on is if you do lose some moisture as you're checking in on the sauerkraut, you can make a saltwater brine, which essentially would be maybe just like a quart of water to a tablespoon of salt, which is kind of the bare minimum salt measurement that I usually go off of, and you can top it off, and that's totally fine to do. So now we're going to finish up chopping the rest of our cabbage up and get ready for it to sit and ferment. So now that you have put all of your sauerkraut into your jars, or we also did a crock. And so a crock is a ceramic container, and this is a gallon. We'll weight it down and make sure that the cabbage is fully submerged into the liquid. And check on your sauerkraut for at least a week. And a lot of it is all about your ambient temperature. So the warmer it is outside, the faster that the fermentation is going to happen. And so in the wintertime, if you're making sauerkraut in the wintertime, it's going to take a little bit longer than it would in the summertime. And for storage, you want to put your sauerkraut in a dark, cool place, ideally not in the sun. I usually like to just put it in a low cabinet in my kitchen where it's closed off from any sunlight. And like I said, check on it for the first few days because some of the liquid might get reabsorbed or it might bubble over. So a good thing also to help pests out of it is to put a dish of water under your jar or crock and check on it every few days, and then kind of go forward into maybe 2 to 4 weeks. I usually like sauerkraut that's fermented for about a month personally. And then once you just taste it to your liking, and once it's really transformed and fermented, you'll figure out what time frame is best for you for how long you want it to be fermented for. And so once it's done, it's really great to then just put it right into your fridge or your cold storage, and then it can last there, up to, half a year or even a year or more. The way fermented foods are is that they're just really well preserved once they're put in a fridge. So I hope you enjoy our class today. Spiral Living Center is a 501c3 nonprofit committed to promoting sustainable living skills in the Illinois Valley since 2006. For more info on our work, visit spiralliving.org.